This has to be the superpower that by far makes me say ew the most. Ew. Ant-Man and the Wasp was directed by Peyton Reed and stars Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. This film is centered between the time after the events of Civil War and before the events of Infinity War. Is Lysol, actually. In the grand scheme of superhero movies, Ant-Man was never supposed to be a grand epic like some of the other installments. The first film to me actually felt like more of a callback to the good old days when superhero movies were just supposed to be these contained little fun times at the movies. And for me, the first Ant-Man film wasn't the most memorable of all the Marvel properties. I don't think it was really supposed to be, but it was a nice little reprieve from all the epicness we've been getting. I feel like whenever I talk about these Marvel movies, I have to disclose that I'm what you consider a general audience. I didn't read a bunch of comics growing up. I think I said in my Ragnarok video, I was pretty much just into Spider-Man, and that's it. A lot of the characters that have been coming out of the past 10 years with these Marvel movies have been my first introduction to these characters. So go ahead and let that inform how much you think you'd enjoy this movie based on what I thought. That being said, I firmly believe that any movie shouldn't require homework and it should be totally accessible to the general audience as its own thing. That being said, what did I think of Ant-Man and the Wasp? Let's put it under the magnifying glass and look at story. Our story opens not with Scott, but with Hope and her last memory of her mother, Janet. Dr. Pym and his wife, Janet Van Dyne, say their farewells to a young Hope to embark on some important business as the original Ant-Man and Wasp. This business proves more than they bargained for when Janet is forced to shrink down to the ill-advised subatomic level. She saves the day, but Hope is left motherless when Janet is lost to the quantum realm, a place inaccessible until the events of the first Ant-Man movie. Fast forward a few years, and Scott is trying to resume being a good father after his involvements in the events of Civil War. His going solo to Cap's side has left things icy between him and Hope. But when she and her father approach him to help find Janet, our hero is reluctantly roped into the mission. Problems arise when a masked newcomer steps into the field with her own motives for retrieving the lost soul in the quantum realm. Yeah, there's a lot going on, but that doesn't necessarily make it hard to follow. Unlike the kind of superhero movies we've been growing accustomed to, this one really isn't trying to keep us hooked with mystery and intrigue and an intricate plot. And you can kind of guess every story beat as it's coming, but in its defense, it's not really trying to do anything different. It's an enjoyable point A to point B movie. Hope and Pym need to get to the quantum realm. There's some big bads that are after their technology, and the mysterious ghost also wants to find Hope's mother. When you boil it down, all these characters really are all on the same trajectory, which makes the fun of this story and joining the characters along for the ride. Unfortunately, this does make the story itself a little forgettable. There was actually a point in the last half of the movie where I was having fun, but in that, I had to remind myself, wait, why is everybody after this thing? Like, why is all this stuff happening? And then I'm like, oh yeah, find mom in the quantum realm. Of course. Usually I'd bump it down for the plot feeling so insignificant, but then it's clear it wasn't really trying to be significant. So it's hard to get too mad at it. I'd be way more mad if it tried shoehorning in a meaningful message amidst all the chase scenes with shrinking, hilarious hijinks. That being said though, when it all wrapped up, the story itself did feel like kind of a throwaway. There was never really any stakes. And even when there were moments of stakes, they were kind of just easily brushed over and everything was okay. Everything's fine. See this one for the characters and not a gripping story. Segue! So as I mentioned before, my first exposure to this character was the 2015 movie. The first Ant-Man movie may have been pretty forgettable to me, but Paul Rudd as Ant-Man was not. It's interesting because the idea of the ironic superhero has really been blossoming in the past few years. Guardians of the Galaxy was when I first saw this kind of relatable, shitty superhero, and then Deadpool happened with the 2 Guardians movies and 2 Deadpool movies, and then Thor Ragnarok. I was worried that this whole ironic superhero comedy thing was going to feel a little stale. I'm so glad I was wrong. I won't say this movie was groundbreaking comedy in a superhero movie, but it was fun. Paul Rudd's Ant-Man is his own brand of relatable superhero. He's like if somebody's friendly neighborhood cool dad decided to become a superhero. He's not dry and cynical like Deadpool, but not an out-of-touch man-child like Peter Quill. He's a true average Joe that's just so down-to-earth and personable that it's impossible not to love. He just wants to be a good dad. and good dads don't get in trouble with the law by breaking house arrest and using unregulated supersuits. And Hope as the Wasp is given much more to do than she was in the first movie. Actually, I'd argue that this is really her standalone superhero film, because it's her with the ambition, her with the skill, her that's driving the energy forward, and her that's making the actually kind of goofy power of shrinking seem pretty cool. Evangeline Lilly has amazing chemistry with Rudd and pulls off the seemingly impossible task of being a kick-ass female hero and good buddy character. The joy really is in watching these two together. Sure, Ant-Man is kind of placed on the side for this one, but it made it feel like this was a superhero movie from the POV of the sidekick. And in a world brimming with superhero movies, this is a lesser told story. I'm not going to get into how great all the side characters were because there's a few of them and there's definitely some standouts. Actually, side characters like this kind of remind me of what I loved about Pirates of the Caribbean, where you've got this huge cast of characters, but they're just so vibrant and so full in their little moments that you remember every single one. Now that I'm done giving due credit, I'm going to take it down a couple notches on the character spectrum for Ghost and Janet. It's okay to throw away the corporate bad guys. It's okay to throw away henchmen and double-crossers that are really just there to serve the plot. But after looking into Janet and Ghost in particular, I felt like they could have splurged for a little more depth. Ghost is a villain who, when you look into the source material, it's just so cool. There's just so many skills here. Intellectual, techie, street smart, mysterious, and someone whose existence is pain and whose wrongdoings are out of desperation. And I know I said movies shouldn't require homework, but I just had to look into this one after I saw the movie because of how much I just didn't care when I was watching the movie. Though there's nothing particularly wrong with the performance, and they do give her a bit of a backstory, the film presents it as a quick explanation before throwing her in as another thing between our heroes and the MacGuffin. Hope's mother, Janet, also felt a little inconsequential. And without giving too much away, you realize by the end of the film that she's really just there for one purpose. And after looking into these characters and the source material and what they could be, it feels like a waste. But at the end of the day, the movie is called Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's what you pay to see, and that's where the movie shines. Though I will say the marketing for this one made it feel like it's gonna be a really buddy kind of movie, like Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp, and it's going to be them together, working together. And it's a little bit more like the Wasp, her dad, and Ant-Man's there too. I was promised a buddy movie with friendship, partnership I could get into, like Shrek and Donkey. It was more like Shrek and the boulder. And it's a nice boulder, but the movie's about Shrek. Did I just call Evangeline Lilly Shrek? Anyway, let's talk about tone. This one's gonna be nice and easy. Like its predecessor, the tone is pretty cohesive, and the movie knows what it is. Not once when I saw the posters for this film did I think, here's a film that's gonna shake the MCU to the core. Here's a movie that's gonna have a huge impact on the aesthetic of superhero movies forever. We were promised a fun, inoffensive little superhero flick, and that's what we got. Some of you may be thinking that sounds like a bad thing. It's not. Many movies, not just superhero ones, seem to be following the example of the MCU by opting for huge stories with year-spanning franchises. It's getting more and more difficult now to see a movie that's just its own thing and not just setting up another damn movie. But why am I even bringing that up when Ant-Man and the Wasp is clearly a sequel? Well, that's because it feels like it's contained, and it's oddly refreshing. An inconsequential plot leaves room for jokes, creative chase sequences, and action that flows as smooth as the quippy punchlines. Part of the brilliance in the comedy is the simplicity, that shrinking as a superpower is actually kinda dumb and looks ridiculous when put into practice. The film embraces that goofiness and plays it to its advantage. We get Hot Wheels-sized car chases, we get teeny tiny men fighting normal-sized men, we get Scott Lang's suit malfunctioning so he has to make his escape at an awkward child size. It's hilarious. Really, it's up to Hope's character to make the shrinking power look cool. And she does. But can I just say that for all this film's goofiness, the one thing I found the most distracting was the makeup. Like, Black Widow is beautiful. Of course she is. She's Scarlett Johansson. But even Black Widow looks a trifle scruffy when she's fighting bad guys. But just because existence is pain doesn't mean you let yourself go, ladies. There are no ruffled women in this film. The cheekbones are highlighted, eyeliner is sharp, the lash extensions are fresh and fluttery. And take comfort in the fact that if a freak accident leaves every cell of your being in a painful state of destruction and regeneration, it gives you a dramatic evening look that's both edgy and red carpet ready. Like, am I the only one distracted by this? I single out the ladies in this movie in particular because, yeah, the guys are all generally attractive actors, and yeah, I know, movie magic, they're wearing makeup too, but the women just seem really done up considering their circumstances. I'm fixating on this because it makes it really funny when these women are trying to have a dramatic moment. All I'm picturing while Ghost is telling us about her painful existence is her angstily blending her eyeshadow with 3 different brushes every morning. Or how there must at least be a drugstore cosmetic boutique in the quantum realm because damn. Just why? It was so distracting. That aside, this movie's tone really comes through in the character interactions and in the dialogue. The music is nondescript, aside from a few comedic moments. The palette is bright, but nothing really remarkable. What you're really going for is the dynamic way we follow the growing, shrinking, and overall action that keeps this film a fun ride despite everything else being pretty safe. This movie knows what it is, and it's overall pretty cohesive. That's more than can be said from a lot of movies. But enough of that, let's see how Ant-Man and the Wasp fared overall on the screen spectrum. It was pretty decent. This is one of those movies that if people start raving later about how it's changing the MCU and Marvel's outdone themselves again, I'm probably going to start hating it because I won't be able to stop fixating on how bullshit that is. But as it stands, nobody's really putting it on a pedestal, and it was just a fun little treat from Marvel to us. No, it's not world-changing. It's not refreshing anything significant for the genre, but it feels like a fun flip through an enjoyable comic book that I'd revisit on a lazy afternoon. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Ant-Man and the Wasp, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to see where some more movies fall on the screen spectrum. Whew! 2 words. Quantum realm. Just got back, feeling great, feeling healthy. What was it like? It was like colors, water bears, Sephora. It was just crazy, but great for the skin. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's the quantum realm.